Mossad Boulous, Trump's senior advisor for Africa and the Middle East, holds multiple citizenships, including Nigerian, lived in Lagos for decades. He parrots verbatim talking points of terror-linked northern imams. He is CEO of his family company, which currently profits from multi-billion-dollar no-bid contracts issued by the Tinubu administration, issued to his business partner. He sells the heavy equipment to build the no-bid billion-dollar, $13 billion in projects. This is Trump's senior advisor. He's also Tiffany Trump's father-in-law. Examples of ongoing failures and impunity. Ngoshe, Borno State, wiped out in the Gwoza massacre of 2014. The government recently assured refugees in Cameroon it was safe for them to return, paid them to return. Within weeks, on March 3rd, Boko Haram slaughtered dozens, more than 300 abducted into slavery, including the wife and daughter of a friend of mine. The military was largely AWOL. The attacks continue there. Deborah Samuel Yakubu, 2022, college student. After finals, she posted on WhatsApp, "Jesus is the greatest. He helped me pass my exams." The next day on campus, as professors and police watched, she was beaten, stoned, tires heaped on her, and burned alive, while students filmed selfies in front of the flames celebrating. The deputy imam of the National Mosque, who performed President Buhari's daughter's wedding, publicly justified the killing within 24 hours on his own Twitter account. No one was punished. Nnamdi Kanu, British-Nigerian broadcaster from London, illegally abducted from Kenya, tried under a defunct law, now serving life in Sokoto prison for words spoken in Great Britain. Meanwhile, the northern imam just recently offered a 1 million naira bounty for the head of a pastor, then doubled it to taunt his critics. No charges, no condemnation from officials. I've been corresponding with the guy. He helped him get to a safe house, but he and his family are in danger and they need help. The Nigerian government goes to great expense to rehabilitate the killers, while millions of innocent displaced victims are denied, neglected, and dying. The narrative war. The farmer herder and climate change framing started in the Obama State Department. The original reference document was written by a career Sharia propagandist hired by George Soros. At least $10 million confirmed U.S. lobbying contracts are now running. Former Trump administration officials, Nigerian government lobbyists, northern imams, foreign agents, conflicted advisors, and now even Russian state television are among those working to shield this regime from accountability. The real narrative is this: Nigeria is in the throes of an Islamic conquest. Since 2009, they have slaughtered as many as 125,000 Christians and 60,000 Muslims. This is not simply a religious freedom issue. This is national and global security. The emergency: as many as 10 to 12 million, mostly youth, are now displaced. 50-60% chance of radicalization by 2030 without intervention. Most are denied by the government, who call them beggars and criminals. Without intervention, this could yield 5 to 6 million more jihadists over the next 5 to 6 years. Intervention is not hard. The international community has the money and the mandate to help if the displaced are simply recognized. In 2015, the UNHCR documented multiple displacement camps in Abuja. Today, they deny those camps exist. I have run schools in those same camps since 2020. They do exist. I affirm the cycle of violence is not inborn or inevitable. A lot of Americans write it off. Oh, that's just what they do. Yes, the children who saw their parents hacked to death often come to our schools wanting to go back and get revenge, but I can tell you, with an education, they gain character, hope, and vision, and they want to go back to rebuild. What must happen? Nigeria has long been strangled by radical Islamists, predatory extraction, globalist meddling, and institutional corruption. Working with the Nigerian government to end the genocide is like working with the Third Reich to end the Holocaust. They smile and spin as they wait for Trump to leave office. Since CPC designation, killing and impunity have only gotten worse. Sanctions will not work. Visa bans will not work. They're ideologues, and they'll just pivot east. Intentional denial of recognition and aid to displaced people, intentional denial of recognition and aid in this circumstance meets the legal standard of genocide. This is provable. Indict the Tinubu administration. Arrest them. They're guilty of genocide. And it's provable. Conduct a valid census and evidentiary briefing of the displaced. They are our witnesses to genocide and they need help. Investigate the Sultan of Sokoto as a terror sponsor. Circumstantial evidence demands it. We know where the militant camps are. Wipe them out. Bring the enablers to justice. Demand the release of Nnamdi Kanu and other prisoners of conscience. Offer asylum protection to them and others threatened by this regime. Ensure a free election in 2027. It can be done for the cost of a Tomahawk missile volley. Tinubu was declared the winner with less than 9 million votes in a nation of 230 million. A free election changes everything. Let the people vote on a new constitution and self-determination. Like so many other British colonial contraptions designed to fail, separation is likely inevitable, and it is just. The time is now. Nigeria is at a crossroads. It will become either a peaceful, prosperous ally or a massive launchpad for global jihad. There is no going back to the status quo. If the world turns away after this unprecedented scrutiny, the backlash will be bloody and absolute. The window is closing. We must call this what it is and intervene now, or the current genocide will grow and draw more innocent blood, not just there, but here in the United States. Thank you.
Wow. I thought I know you. Yeah. Mike, thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. The developing story seems to have taken Aso Rock by surprise as U.S. Mayor Mike Arnold, decisively, gave a proper rundown why Nnamdi Kanu shouldn't be in Sokoto prison. This has triggered a lot of jubilation in the United States of America as the American government continues to show so much interest on Biafra and Nnamdi Kanu's release. The latest one coming from a popular, renowned mayor in the United States of government who are believed to be very close to the U.S. President Donald Trump. What does this offer to Biafrans all over the world?
I'm going to tell you that this is like a joy, a celebration globally to all of us of freedom. Do not forget that before now, Nnamdi Kanu slogan during the unfortunate trial, "Show me the law," has become a popular slogan globally. And good thing, this is coming from somebody who is well respected for the United States of America, echoing the same thing, telling us that the law upon which Nnamdi Kanu is tried is a dysfunctional law. And before now, it has been severally been discussed that law has been repealed. The basis upon which Nnamdi Kanu was insisting, show me the law. And do not forget that even before now, at the level of the ruling and sentencing, Nnamdi Kanu consistently asked Justice Omotosho, do you have right to waive my right of final address? You will understand that whether you are defending yourself or you are represented by a legal luminary, that as a defense, that you have right to address the court before the ruling. But unfortunately, Nnamdi Kanu was denied this. And I want to believe that this is firm basis for the appeal. That now, we have even seen a Kenya court that ruled before now that the process of bringing Nnamdi Kanu from Kenya to Nigeria is illegal. And at the time, they find those who were complicit in the rendition. And it was quite unfortunate that after seeing a Nigerian court of appeal, before now, even before the unfortunate sentencing by that Justice Omotosho in Nigeria here, we had a situation where the court of appeal, even before that time, ruled that Nnamdi Kanu was extraordinary rendition from Kenya to Nigeria as such that the Nigerian government lost every right to prosecute him. But unfortunately, we are here today. But I think what is happening is already putting Nigeria on a global map. For me, this is like a litmus test for Nigerian system. But whether we like it or not, the more you try to silence the man Nnamdi Kanu, the more we see him shining. This is somebody who has been incarcerated in 5 Sokoto states. Yet, his issue is discussed globally. We saw even at the level of Israel said the other time, they did not just discuss about Biafra. Nnamdi Kanu as a person was extensively discussed. So for me, this is one person who have shown that there is, if you stand on the path of justice, fairness, and equity, that you are like a shining light. And I want to believe that that's what Nnamdi Kanu represents. But whether we like it or not, even in the midst of all of this, we saw apparently how Nnamdi Kanu was given an honorary citizenship in one of the states in the United States of America. So for me, I want to believe that from what we are seeing, very soon, the tsunami that will hit the world secret to the proposal for release of Nnamdi Kanu is going to be monumental.
Okay, at this point, what is the message the United States of government is actually, trying to pass to Nigeria, given the recent statement on Nigeria by the U.S. Mike Arnold? What is it really all about? What message will Nigerian government will get in from that angle?
You know, at times, just like some other people say, that what is happening is like a blessing in disguise. You know, even when we saw, I'll come back to the angle of the United States of America, Mike Arnold, and all of that. When we saw the issue of course, the Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu being discussed at the level of Nasset, it was widely reported that once Israeli government, or rather Nasset Parliament, passed a resolution about their position on Biafra, knowing the relationship between Israel and the United States of America, that they will push it to, of course, the Prime Minister of Israel, talking about Benjamin Netanyahu, who will in turn approach the Oval Office. And once Oval Office bites into it, I'm going to tell you that that's the day you start saying hallelujah for Biafra. Because one thing is certain, America have overriding power over US General Assembly voting. So if US is to write a proclamation for the sovereign state of Biafra, send it to US General Assembly for voting. Whether it go against their will, they will veto it. And that, I want to believe that that is what all of us of freedom, particularly those who are fighting at the international level, are doing. Do not forget that even recently we saw legal experts from United Kingdom trying to invoke some relevant statutes globally to drag Nigerian government to court. Secret to how Nigerian government neglected a UN resolution that came from an arm of UN, talking about arm of UN that is involved in, that deals with arbitrary detention of persons. Because before now, they acknowledged Nigerian government that Nnamdi Kanu should be released unconditionally. But unfortunately, Nigerian government ignored that admonition. And we are now seeing legal experts, not just in Nigeria here, globally, from the best part of the world, coming together to drag Nigerian government to international arena courts to make them explain why they should despise the order of UN.
This has actually put Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Of course, it was his government, that proclaimed that unfortunate judgment on Nnamdi Kanu. Now that this is gathering momentum within that circle, what do you think what should be the action the U.S. government is likely to take? Considering the fact that Nnamdi Kanu was a resistant voice, and we are seeing it very clearly that even Ted Cruz said that Nigerian government are the one who are sponsoring or who are partaking or at some level involved in acts of terrorism. How would you react to that?
For me, what my Cruz said is the obvious truth.
Ted Cruz, yes.
Sorry, what Ted Cruz said is the obvious truth, and what even Mike Arnold said is the obvious truth. He dived into so many areas, even as it has to do with how the Fulanis have subjugated the whole country. So for me, what it means and what is going to come thereafter is that the world is gradually coming together to listen to the man Nnamdi Kanu. Because it's not even surprising that some messages, some advocacy that Nnamdi Kanu put up before his castration are now trending globally on all the social media platforms, where if you use it to even drive a narrative, the world are listening. People are now coming to realize that Nnamdi Kanu is a prophet. Because I saw somebody who chronicled all the things Nnamdi Kanu said, how they have come to pass one after the other. Nnamdi Kanu foresaw this Fulani terrorist invasion of different parts of the country. He foresaw it. If Nigeria were to heed his advice, I have to tell you that Nigeria would have been well prepared. Because currently, Nigeria is in a very big trouble because of this Fulani terrorist agenda. And this is what Nnamdi Kanu told the whole world. That this is the agenda of the Fulanis. This is their modus operandi. And Nigeria didn't listen. And today, we are in for it. Look at a place like Kwara. If somebody was to tell you that Kwara State will become an epicenter of terrorism, when the issue of terrorism started, it started in 2009 under a Jonathan. it was largely restricted to Yobe State, Sambisa Forest, and Borno State. But today, Kwara State is the epicenter of terrorism. It happened on very eyes here. Some people at us ask, does it mean the Fulanis have unfinished business in Kwara State? Because this is a place that was once a urban community taken over by the Fulani Caliphate sometime in the 18th century.
At this point, not to take you far, that with what position of Nnamdi Kanu and what Nnamdi Kanu represented, sorry, do you think, at this point that with what is happening now and the United States of America, can they actually take a decisive action to recognize Biafra as a safe state for Christians in the North?
To be quite honest with you, I think that is the position most civilized persons globally are looking at. And for me, I think there's nothing wrong in having a state called United States of Biafra. After all, even in the Nigerian constitution, there is room for self-determination, because looking at...
But Nnamdi Kanu was not tried because of self-determination, was not sentenced because of self-determination. Possibly it would have gone against the Nigerian government. But somehow around, they played around and was able to come up with some, charges and that suited them. But outside the world keep on talking about, and making references to Nnamdi Kanu, that judgment was actually, illegal. But the question now at this point is that, why is it that we are seeing a sort of delay from the U.S. government, even though the advocacy for the release of Nnamdi Kanu has taken a surprise dimension to the Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration? What is your reaction to that?
I'm going to tell you that what we are seeing, things are gradually crystallizing. But before now, you hardly hear people speak about Nnamdi Kanu in his favor globally. Do not forget that the other time we saw a well-refined Biafran who went to submit later to the Hague Convention. We have seen the Biafra issue being discussed at the level of Israeli assets. We have seen a former ambassador of the United States of America talking about Nigerian possible dissolution. We have seen McAnod, who have not hidden his position about this. So you can clearly see that more people are signing on to this. We have seen Maxwell, one of the legal advisors to Nnamdi Kanu, who, of course, as at the last time he went to Sokoto, said that that place has become a privileged sort of environment. That he met more than 15 people who came from different parts of the world, taking time to be cleared by Nnamdi Kanu himself for them to meet with him. So I think even right there in the detention facility, he's doing a lot of consultation. And this is part of what DSS never wanted. But they wanted to keep him in their own custody. Well, when he was in DSS custody, people do not have access to him the way they have access to him currently. So I'm going to tell you that with what is happening, the way the world is getting attention of the plight of Nnamdi Kanu, very soon we are going to see tsunami. As we talk, you remember that Nigerian government will be appearing before a British court very soon, as a result of legal experts from the United Kingdom. So it is coming gradually. You are going to have Nnamdi Kanu release sooner or later.
Okay, at this point now, what his Nnamdi Kanu's appeal is likely to come up very soon. Would that Nigerian government want to use that opportunity to, because of the international pressure and revelation that are coming, release Nnamdi Kanu? And if Nnamdi Kanu is released, what do you think is going to? How is he going to navigate the Biafran struggle if Donald Trump fails to do the needful or recognize Biafra immediately?
I don't want to prejudice the outcome of the Court of Appeal, but I understand that Nnamdi Kanu have filed his notice of appeal.
I mean, the federal government, because it is a pressure, when you see powerful U.S. citizens, making this kind of statement publicly, if you write in the Congress too, what do you think should be? Because you can't dare, I don't think Nigeria can ever dare America but I think they are sensing that something, Nnamdi Kanu is even getting more solidarity in foreign land, especially U.S. and U.K. currently now. So would that actually, at that point now, put a kind of pressure on the side of the federal government to conduct immediate release of Nnamdi Kanu? Because the world has said clearly that Nnamdi Kanu is actually innocent.
There are so many angles to this. There are so many options on the table. There is diplomatic pressure, and what the diplomatic pressure means is Nigerian government can decide to discontinue the case at any point in time. And when that happens, of course, the man Nnamdi Kanu will be let go. Talking about what happened thereafter, Nnamdi Kanu is someone that, judging by his antecedents, by his, of course, past record, is someone that is resolute in what he believes in. So it's unlikely that Nnamdi Kanu will accept any condition that will jeopardize his interest in pursuing Biafra to the latest.
So what we are seeing now, we're also hearing, that there's possibility that Bola Ahmed Tinubu, federal government delegates, will want to visit Sokoto prison, maybe to persuade him to see how his incarceration will not attract sanction or possibly immediate division, or trying to play around, to show maybe remorseful that what actually transpired in the federal high court, that led to his imprisonment was actually wrong. Can federal government get to that level?
No matter how they try to paint it, no matter how they try to meet with him, I know Nnamdi Kanu, judging by his antecedents, that is resolute. He will always maintain that position. Anything that tampers with the ideology of self-determination and actualization of Biafra, I want to be that Nnamdi Kanu will not give in to it.
With what the Gowon just said recently, is Nnamdi Kanu justified now?
Of course, God have made so many disjointed statements in the past, not just now. But this is a man who agreed to the Aburi Accord at the level of Ghana, came back to Nigeria and denied everything. Unfortunately, anyway, but whether we like it or not, the posterity is already judging him, because from what is happening, it is now becoming very clear that what Ojukwu sought to solve, how Ojukwu sought to solve Nigerian problem, that all those problems Aburi Accord sought to solve are still plaguing us as a nation.
Did Gowon actually lie? Because that recent statement, was it, is it a confession, or that, it was not about the Aburi, abandoned completely, it was about the oil? And that's what Mike Arnold is talking about.
When you say Aburi Accord, it means there was an agreement. There was an accord reached. So at what point did Gowon came back to abandon the accord?